You may have never thought about it, but right now, someone could be controlling your thoughts. Not openly, not aggressively, but quietly, invisibly. Through phrases, hints, ambiguity. Through that strange feeling of guilt after a conversation, when you didn't do anything wrong, but something inside you tightens, as if you're to blame. That's dark psychology, the art of covert influence. And the better you understand it, the harder it is to manipulate you, which means you become freer. Dark psychology isn't mysticism, it's not hypnosis or science fiction. It's a real tool based on the human psyche, and you encounter it more often than you think, in relationships, at work, in family, even among friends. Sometimes it's unconscious, but often it's intentional and calculated. To break you down, suppress you, control you. And if you don't understand how it works, you are unprotected. Have you ever felt confused after a conversation? It seemed normal, but inside everything felt tangled. You couldn't tell what you were feeling, how to respond. That's one of the signs someone's manipulating you. Or another situation, the conversation has long ended, but you keep replaying it in your head, imagining arguments you wish you'd said. That's another symptom, artificial incompletion. Or you suddenly start justifying yourself even though no one directly accused you. All of that are consequences of covert influence. Why does this happen? Because manipulators exploit psychological vulnerabilities. They know how to trigger the right emotion, how to disorient you, how to put you in a victim role, even if everything seems normal on the surface. The most dangerous part isn't aggression, it's subtlety. Fake concern, exaggerated politeness, devaluation disguised as humor, and you won't even realize right away that you're being pressured. One of the most common techniques is gaslighting, when they tell you nothing happened, that you imagined it, that you're overreacting. It's not just lying, it's an attack on your perception of reality. Gradually, you start doubting yourself. You think, maybe I really am wrong? And that's when the manipulator is already inside your mind. He's planted himself in your consciousness. He's made you doubt your own senses. There's another method, passive aggression. When someone says, no, it's nothing, but you feel something's wrong. They avoid the conversation, refuse to engage, but their silence is full of anger. You don't get direct confrontation, but you still feel guilty. And again, you start doubting yourself, which means they're in control again. Flattery, another tool. It sounds positive. They praise you, admire you, highlight your uniqueness. Then comes a request, and you can't say no because they just told you how amazing you are. If you refuse, you'll disappoint them. And you don't want to disappoint, do you? Then comes pity, the most reliable way to get anything from someone. For example, someone says, I'm in trouble, I don't know who else to turn to, and your empathy kicks in, even if you sense you're being used. Pity makes you vulnerable. Devaluation, a classic. You share good news, and they say, that's it? That's your achievement. And in that moment, your self-esteem crashes. You're no longer sure it was even worth celebrating, which means you're easier to control again. These techniques can be used by anyone. Parents, partners, colleagues, friends, sometimes unconsciously, but often very intentionally. Because it's convenient when you're predictable, when you stay silent, when you tolerate, when you don't defend yourself. But you can change that. You can learn to recognize manipulation and dismantle it before it takes root in your mind. It starts with awareness, with realizing that not everything people say is true. Not every "I care about you" is genuine. Not every criticism is constructive. Not every piece of advice is well-meaning. There are situations where you must protect yourself. First, when kindness doesn't work. When you've tried to reason, to explain, to be honest. But all you get in return is aggression. That means normal methods won't work. Time to activate conscious defense. Second, when your safety is under threat. Not just physical, but psychological. When you realize that continuing this relationship will make you lose respect for yourself. You'll start doubting yourself. You'll break down. That's the signal. It's time to leave. Third, when someone constantly lies. Promises, then breaks them. Says one thing, does another. It's not forgetfulness. It's a system, a manipulation tool. They keep you suspended, uncertain of what's next. Fourth, when they try to pull you into someone else's script. You are not a character in someone else's drama. You don't have to be convenient. You don't have to conform. You have the right to be yourself. But manipulators don't want that. They need someone who plays by their rules. Next, practice. How to spot manipulation in real time. Pay attention to your body. If you feel tightness in your chest, pressure, anxiety, that's a signal. If you feel drained, guilty, or angry at yourself after a conversation, that's a signal. Manipulation always leaves a trace. It never goes unnoticed. Another important point, manipulation often hides behind help. They pretend to care. They advise, support, guide. But you feel like your energy is slipping away, that you're being replaced, that after such support, you don't feel stronger, but weaker. That's not help. That's hidden control. One of the most powerful techniques, devaluing your goals. You say you want something, and immediately hear, "Are you sure? Isn't it too soon? What if it doesn't work? Have you thought what'll happen if you fail?" That's not concern. That's sabotage. That's an attempt to plant doubt. And the more you doubt, the less you act. Want to destroy someone's goal? Ask, "Are you sure you really need this?" Then, "Isn't the cost too high?" Then, "Who's helping you? Are they really trustworthy?" Then, "Have you thought this could be an illusion?" And finally, just think about it. No aggression, no argument, just doubt, just diluted confidence. That's how it works. But you can also use this technique on yourself as a test. If after asking yourself these questions, you still want to move forward, the goal is real. It means it's yours. But if it falls apart, maybe it wasn't what you truly wanted. You might be surprised, but even your physical state can be altered through the mind. Take allergies, for example. If during a stressful moment you were surrounded by certain smells, tastes, sounds, they can become triggers. And every time you encounter them again, your body will recall that state, even if the situation is long gone. That's embedded anchoring through the shadow. You're not to blame if someone used psychological weapons against you, but you are responsible for learning how to recognize them. As long as you don't understand how it works, you'll be controlled. But now you've started to understand, and that's the first step to freedom. You've already started to see how it all works. You understand that the world isn't as simple as they tried to make you believe. Manipulation isn't rare. It's a system. And perhaps the most terrifying realization is just how deep it can go. It can shape your reactions, direct your thoughts, rewrite your self-worth. And if you don't start resisting, you won't even notice how you stop being yourself. Have you ever felt like you've lost yourself? Like you no longer know what you want? That every decision brings anxiety, every word brings doubt. That's not weakness. That's the result of influence. A manipulator doesn't need to destroy you physically. They just need you to give up on yourself. Doubt is their weapon. Insecurity is their tool. Guilt is their leash. One of the most insidious ways to destroy someone is constant, exhausting duality. When they say one thing and do another. When words of care are followed by acts of neglect. When someone says they love you, but you constantly feel anxiety, humiliation, control. This is called a double bind. It breaks perception. It makes healthy response impossible. And the longer you're trapped in it, the more disconnected from reality you become. You never really know what someone is trying to tell you. You're always second-guessing yourself, others, the world, and that breeds helplessness. And a helpless person is the perfect target for control. Want to erase someone's identity? Make them doubt their own feelings. Tell them they're overreacting, that they made it up, that they're being too sensitive. Say, "Can't you take a joke?" Do it often. Over time, the person starts to believe they're wrong, that they're unstable, that their perception is flawed. And then, you can lead them anywhere. The next level is reality replacement. For example, you express hurt, and they say, "It's all in your head." You talk about your feelings, and they respond, "You're just trying to start drama." They convince you that your perception is broken, and you start rejecting your own truth. You stop trusting yourself. You search for grounding, and you find it in the very person who's been breaking you. Now you're dependent, emotionally, mentally, because you no longer have internal guidance. Everything is outside. Everything is in the other person. If they want to lift you up, they will. If they want to destroy you, they'll do it effortlessly. But manipulation isn't just about personal relationships. It's about the system, about a society that doesn't want you to stand out, that wants you to be silent, to never ask questions, to never be too bold, too strong, too free. Because a free person is a threat. How do you control millions? Through fear, through guilt, through dependency on approval, through expectations that you place on yourself. Be good, be agreeable, be normal. And suddenly you're no longer playing your own role. You're not living your life. And then comes depression, panic, emptiness. Because inside, there's nothing left that's truly yours. Want to destroy someone? Start with their identity. Take away their sense of who they are. Blur their self-image, and they become easy to control. Use subtle sarcasm, ignoring, rejection, passive aggression. It works. Because the psyche is alive. It can be wounded. It can be rewritten. Now imagine you no longer want to be the victim, that you've decided to take back control of your life, that you're tired of guilt, that you're done bending to others' expectations. Where do you begin? First, admit that you've been manipulated, that it wasn't just your imagination, that you're not too sensitive, that you didn't make it all up. It happened. And it left a mark. Second, become aware of your reactions. Notice where you're on autopilot, where you stay silent when you want to speak, where you say yes when you want to say no, where you justify yourself when you've done nothing wrong. Track it. Name it. Only then can you break the cycle. Third, set boundaries. Not just in words, but in actions. Start small. Don't reply to messages when it's inconvenient. Say no to plans you don't want. Stop explaining to everyone why you chose to be yourself. You don't owe anyone that. Fourth, rebuild your connection to yourself. You can only do this in silence, without opinions from others, without constant comparison. without the need to please. Ask yourself, what do I want? Not what's expected, not what's right, but what do I want? And let yourself feel that. Fifth, be ready for loss. When you stop being convenient, you will lose people. But that's not loss. That's cleansing. They don't leave because you became strong. They leave because they can no longer use you. And the most important thing, reclaim your self-respect. Manipulation takes away your dignity, but you can take it back. Through honesty, through choice, through your right to exist as yourself. You don't have to be convenient. You don't have to be understood. You don't have to conform. You are not a product. You are not a function. You are a human being. And if you think that fighting manipulation is about fighting others, you're wrong. It's about fighting your own addiction to their opinions. It's about rebuilding your own wholeness. It's internal reconstruction. You are not broken. You've just let others define you for too long. But now, that changes. Now you know how it works. Now you understand how it destroys. And now you can choose to obey or to be yourself.